So what's going on, Dave? How are you doing today?
Hey Joe, how you doing there, buddy?
Man, I am doing well. So this is our very first episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. So I am
Sweet.
excited, very excited to be here. We've been talking about this, working on it for the last few months. And so to finally have our first episode get out there for our viewers and listeners, this is amazing. So I'm going to kick it off. And just like the title says, Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast, I'm going to start with my journey, but I'm not going to tell you my entire life story. I'm in my 50s. We will be here 2 days. So, what I'm going to do instead is talk about what I like to refer to as my intentional journey. And what I mean by that is it's actually when I took stock of my life and kind of took a look at where I was at that time and where I was headed, and that's when I really started to focus on my journey. And at the time, I didn't realize this. I didn't know that that's what this was going to be called today. But back then, it was just about advancing my career, developing to be someone else. And so for me, my intentional journey started in the summer of 2005. But what triggered my journey or what started all had to do with where I was at the time when I started. And I was 40 years old. This was 2005. I was 19 years in the military and I was considering retiring at 20. So I looked at where I was and, I was an aircraft mechanic, which is a great profession, but I also was an older gentleman now, and I was bones starting to ache and things like that. So I was really looking at, longevity and not just the, aviation industry, but longevity in, my career, professional career. So started looking at opportunities to move up, which meant supervisor or leader of some type. And years ago, I applied for a position and did not receive the job, but a peer who had almost identical credentials to me received the job or was selected for the job. And I asked the manager what separated me and him. And he told me that it was because he had an associate's degree. He had a degree and I didn't. And so that stuck with me. And this was probably 15, 20 years before that. So this stuck with me for quite a while on, the importance of that degree. Because he said, nobody's going to take you serious without a degree. And growing up in our era, me and Dave's era, education wasn't, considered a kind of separator or divider of our workforce. So I understood that. But up to that point, I had not had the opportunity to get a degree. So now I was considering, again, advancement. So my first thought was to get a degree. And initially, it was just to get an associate's degree. And this was 23 years after I had started high school. Yeah, this was a little challenging for me. In fact, the first couple of classes, I struggled and I almost considered not completing it. So, yeah, it was a struggle. But I realized I had already started school 4 times prior to this. And for me, I had a mindset that I had to complete it this time. I couldn't make any more excuses. So I had to do it. And so rather than continue to drag this on, I just want to tell you that commitment that I made to earn an associate's degree quickly changed. And it went from just earning an associate's degree, but rather earning 2 associate's degrees, a bachelor's degree, an MBA, and then also a doctorate degree. And that took me about 9 years. And so I would never have imagined that my journey would have taken me to that point. I really had not considered that. And so along the way, not only did the education, did I reach those goals on the education side, but even in my military career, I did not retire at 20. I ended up retiring at almost 35 years. So I stayed in, and because I started to go down the path of leadership in the military. And so as my education grew, my determination also grew as far as where I wanted to end my military career. And so I made it to the highest enlisted position in the military, as a command chief master sergeant in the Air Force, which again, another one of those things I would have never imagined I would have been able to do. Along with that, along the way, I've published 5 books now. I'm also adjunct professor, and I'm a business owner. I have a consulting business. And so this all was happening while I, was deploying several times, had a wife and 3 kids that were pretty active in sports and all the activities that, kids do. This was not just, hey, Joe's going to set aside and do all this and get his education. No, this was while life was happening, while things were going on. So not to try to impress you by any means, but rather to hopefully show you or let you know that you can do it too. Again, this is with all these variables thrown in my life. Like I say, it was just not a cakewalk. From point A to point B easily. No, it wasn't. And so to cap this whole thing off, now to be sitting here in front of you, or you listening as a podcast host or co-host with Dave. So my journey, or intentional journey, that started 2005, just to earn an associate's degree, developed or turned into where I am today. And I would never have imagined that if I had not been intentional about what I was trying to do. And it took me changing my mindset and opening my mind to the possibilities of what could be. And that's what I'm so excited about today. Like I say, I would have never imagined almost 17 years ago that I'd be sitting in front of you as a podcast host. And so that's why I'm excited about this journey, because my journey's not over. Dave's journey's not over, but with our help or with our assistance, maybe we can help you with your journey, and so that you're not taking a long scenic route as me and Dave so commonly like to refer to our journeys. But my journey is still happening. It's still, I still get excited because I tell people all the time, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And so for me, that's the excitement, because I don't know where this is going to take me. So I don't want to continue to ramble on, but I did want to just kind of give you a brief peek into my background, and we'll discuss it throughout the shows in different times. But I just wanted to give you kind of a high level look at how I got here. And like I say, when I started my intentional journey back in 2005. So I think you've heard enough of me for now. So I'm going to hand it off to Dave and let him introduce himself. Go ahead, Dave.
Thanks, Joe. Great introduction and great recap. Thank you for parsing that down into such a small window when, like you said, we could talk for days about ourselves. Like Joe, I too started college late. I wasn't the best student in high school. I went in the military right out of high school. I was military police. So I did that for a while. And then when I got out of the military, I realized that I wanted to go back in. So I shouldn't have gotten out. So I actually was in the military 3 different times. And the last time I was in my late 20s. And I realized that if I was going to go anywhere, that I needed to have a backup plan. And college became my backup plan. And while I was in the military, one of my military colleagues said, hey, you should go to school. So I'm in my late 20s. I think I was like 27, 28. I took 2 college classes because I was a glutton for punishment, not doing good in high school and not being terrified of college. I took 2 classes. And I actually did well, but then it was another 2 years before I was back in the classroom and before I went back to college. And when I did, I was terrified because it had been 2 years. I was going to go full time while working full time, while being a parent, while being a spouse. And there's a lot of life challenges with that. And uh, I got my bachelor's, went straight into my master's program, and that was a dream for me. I mean, I never had I never thought I'd get a college degree, let alone a master's degree. And so I took a break while my son was in junior high and high school, spent some great time with him, and then went back and got my doctorate. I've written several books, have my own consulting business similar to Joe. So there are some similarities between Joe and I and our path. Both started school late, later in our careers, both being in the military, being enlisted in the military, getting out of the military, and then achieving ultimately a terminal degree, a doctorate degree in our respective fields. And I think that's kind of some of the basis on how Joe and I kind of stumbled upon each other. But it gives us an opportunity to be able to provide coaching and consulting services because of our backgrounds to help you all hopefully not take as long and scenic route as we have. Pretty and fun, frustrating, like any road trip going coast to coast, you're going to see some great things and you're going to have your flat tires and car trouble, the not so fun stuff. And there's a lot of bathroom breaks along the way, so sometimes it takes longer than we expected. My deliberate journey started in 2000 and didn't end until 2013. So while I was a couple of years younger than Joe and started a little bit earlier, my scenic route was a little bit longer. My trip was a little bit longer than Joe's, but we wound up in the same place for the most part. And that is here on the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast to provide guidance and talk about cool subjects and challenging subjects and explore these variety of topics in your professional development and personal development. I think that's a pretty good nutshell for me to share. Like Joe, I could probably talk just as long, probably longer. I'm a blabbermouth sometimes, but I think this would be a good transition for a topic that's very near and dear to Joe and I, and that's education. And within the bucket of education, it's not just higher education and college degrees, it's certifications, it's licenses, it's trade schools, it's online classes, for certifications or just training in general. We would like to talk about education, and it's a big bucket. So we're gonna explore it for a little bit and see what we can get out of this. So Joe, if you're good with it, I'm going to kick it off and start talking about college.
Okay.
So I'm a huge proponent of college. It may be because when I was in high school, I wasn't the best student. I didn't graduate with a GPA that I would brag about, or even I don't even like to discuss it because honestly, it's amazing that I even graduated high school. So not a great period of education for me. So I hold college education as something important. But that was, back in the 80s, when I graduated high school, late 80s. So things were different. Back then, having in the 70s, the differentiator was an associate's degree. If you had an associate's degree, that was your leg up. In the 80s and 90s, it was a bachelor's degree. If you had a bachelor's degree, that was your leg up into getting a great job. And then it became a master's degree. And then as we trailed into the early 2000s, 2005 to 2000, I would say 15, having a doctorate degree was a huge separator. But there was something else that also happened during that time. As the demand for college went up, and people started attending college, fewer people were going to trade schools and becoming electricians and plumbers and, you know, general trades. And so you look at the economy today, and there's a big debate about college education versus trade school, and or no education and just getting a wealth of knowledge and experience under your belt. And that's what we kind of want to explore right now for the next several minutes, because where it used to be a leg up to have a college degree, now it's just another track. There's a huge demand for trade schools. There's a huge demand for people starting out with a great amount of experience. So when we're asked, is a college degree important? My response is, it depends. It depends on what you want to do and where you want to go. And in order to do that, you have to have a plan, or at least an idea of what you want to do, when you grow up. And to Joe's point earlier, sometimes I still don't even know what I want to do when I grow up. You know, I'm not saying I'm flying by the seat of my pants, because I'm not. I've got a plan, but sometimes those plans have little side tracks, and you kind of circle back, and then you go over this way, and then you come back, and then maybe you'll go up, and then maybe you go down and over. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing and what you want to do. And there's a lot of factors. Admittedly, COVID has changed the workplace significantly. And when we talk about the impacts of a pandemic on education, it's quite significant, because it used to be classroom and online, and now it's almost pretty close to, and I'm not even going to throw numbers out because I don't want to speculate, but a majority of classes are actually being conducted in a virtual environment, which pre-pandemic was a struggle. You know, to get people in an online environment, it was kind of a push. Hey, let's get you in here. And some students liked it, some students didn't. But now it's almost, there's not much of a choice. It's pretty much all virtual. So getting back to college degree, yes or no, again, it just depends. For me, I always refer to it as my ticket out of blue collar work. You know, I was making a little bit better than minimum wage at the time, and I didn't like what I was doing. And I viewed it as, if I get a degree, I can get out of the really not so good work environment I was in into a better work environment, and make quite a bit more money at what I was doing, and doing something that I liked and I enjoyed. So that was why I got a college degree. It was to put myself in a better position, have a better career, better job environment, and do something that I enjoyed more. Getting a master's degree was the icing on the cake. To me, it was like, well, I'm already in the college mode. I may as well go ahead and do it. It's only a couple extra years, right? And that was a great decision. When I took my break between my master's and my doctorate, when I started back up in my doctorate degree, there was the realization that I'd been told to before about, spoken to about before, and that was, there's going to be an adjustment period, because you're no longer in that mode of doing homework, writing papers, researching, and all that. And it was true. Would I change my journey? No, because it's brought me here to where I am today, and I love where I'm at today. I don't know what the next year or 5 or 10 or 20 years holds for me, but this is where I'm at right now, and I love it. And yeah, and that's why I think college is important, because it does open up certain opportunities. But with the need for trades, I don't know how many of you have bought a house or rent an apartment, and something goes wrong. You need something painted, or something patched on a wall, plumbing, electrical, ceiling fan, whatever. And it seems like it takes days or weeks to get things done. My son has been waiting months to have a faucet repaired, because there just isn't enough people in trades to perform the job. And so there is a huge demand for trade schools, welders, electricians, plumbers, working with natural gas. I mean, you name it, the blue collar work there's a huge demand for it. And it's a huge skill set that takes time and takes practice. And so when we talk about degree or no degree, it just depends on where you want to go. There's a college track, and then there's a career, and then there's a trades path. And each one of them is equally rewarding. It's just, what do you want to do and how do you want to do it? So I'm going to throw the question back to Joe. College, yes or no, Joe?
So Dave, yeah, so you hit on a lot of key points. And so I think where you started was, growing up. And so like for me, growing up, graduating high school in the early 80s, when I walked across the stage with my high school diploma, my dad was in tears because he didn't even have, high school diploma. So for him to see me even graduate with a high school diploma was huge. And again, it goes back to that era or that time when education wasn't, pushed on, or in my household at all. My parents never said, "Hey, you need to go to college." But the real world, as you said, started to change, and they said, "Hey, to be in certain positions, you're going to need an education." And so, and I, mentioned in my intro that along that time frame, late 80s, when I didn't receive a job, and the manager clearly said, because you didn't even have at least an associate's degree. So that stuck with me for a lot of years, because like you said, that was the time when that was kind of separated you from your peers. And so I viewed that all the way until the time I started to work on my degree. But that was, 20 plus years later. And like you mentioned, that was when that transition started to change, when bachelor's degree became more common, then the master's degree even became more common. And so as we progress, like you mentioned, up to the doctorate level, we still were at a level where we were really separating ourselves from our peers. But then again, there was another shift that now, society says, the degrees are great, but we still need those people, as you mentioned, to do the trades and do those types of things, because society had gotten so focused on, you need a degree to be successful. And so we really focused on that so much that we saturated the market. Everybody went to school. And so that did not leave, as you just mentioned, room for trades and those other skills to be developed, because that wasn't promoted in schools. And so that was thought of as a lesser skills and things like that. It didn't measure up to the degrees. And so, but like you say, now that shift is back. COVID has changed things, and demand for those other types of jobs are becoming more evident every day. So today, if I was going to suggest to someone, whether to get a degree or not, I wouldn't necessarily say go down the path of getting a degree. And like you mentioned, though, you said there's, track. So if I want to be a college professor, then of course I definitely need to get, earn a degree. And it's going to be where I need to facilitate or teach at that level. Also in corporate America, there are still positions, if you're striving to be a CEO, or if you're striving to, be a high level leadership position, it may demand that you earn a master's degree or an MBA or something along that line. So it really is dependent on where you see yourself in the future, or where you think you may end up. And you touched on this too. Even if you lay out that plan, exactly where you think you want to be, more than likely there's going to be some changes that are going to have to occur. You're going to, instead of going a straight line from A to B, it's going to be A and A plus, back and forth. It's going to turn into this maze of you getting to where you eventually are. And so again, if I had time to think about it, like Dave said, he had a sabbatical, 4-year sabbatical in his education journey. And for me, I didn't. So I pressed, 9 years straight. and earn my doctorate degree. Because just as he said, if I would have taken a break, there's no way I would have finished. I knew that I needed to, while I had the momentum, while I had the mindset, that I had to continue it. But again, if I had to do it all over again, I've been asked this question many times the last few years. I, of course, this was never my dream. To be honest with you, I never dreamed I could be a doctor. So that's really off the table right off the bat. I never knew I had the ability or capabilities to be a doctor. So that's off the table. But to answer that question, people ask if I, you know, should I earn a doctorate or would you do it again? And I would say no, because first off, you had to be really clear about why you're earning a degree. And for me, it was not for the right reasons. Again, I achieved this goal, but I've heard somebody say this previously. They were working on their doctorate degree and they realized they weren't really working on it for themselves. They thought they would be more accepted if they had a doctorate degree. And that was kind of the path I was going down. I earned a doctorate degree, then people are surely going to accept me. People are surely going to see me as this individual, that's capable of all these things. But that has not been the case. And I think part of it is that shift of the education doesn't lead. The degrees don't lead the way they did, years ago. It's again, now we're relying heavily on people with the experience and background and things like that, which I agree that is very important. So to earn my doctorate degree in this shift has definitely been a challenge because like Dave said, years ago, if you had earned your doctorate degree, you'd be put on this pedestal, so to speak, and your salary would be way up here versus, people that didn't have a doctorate degree. And today that's not necessarily the case. Again, we're now understanding the importance of people with certain skills and certain abilities that outweigh that doctorate degree in a lot of situations. So I don't necessarily recommend to people to earn a doctorate degree unless that is what they want to do. And Dave said it, you have to be really clear about the path that you're trying to take. And if that was your goal or your dream, before, that's great. But don't pursue a doctorate or any education just to be accepted, or you think that's going to get you to that level. Because like Dave said, there's certifications, there's licenses. There's all
really
different
more options available to get to further your career now than there used to be.
And I think that's key what Dave just said. The development piece, it's the learning. That's the key. It's not earning certificates and things. It's continuing to develop yourself. That's the key. So whether it's taking classes, whether it's reading all the material in your given field or area expertise, but just becoming, an expert in whatever that is, if it's your craft or again, at the education level. Like Dave said, we've done research and that was our specialties. But we have to continue that. We can't just say, well, I got my doctorate degree and I know everything. No, that's not the case. It is still that sense of continuing to grow and to develop, because as we've seen, things change so rapidly. And Dave mentioned it, COVID is a perfect example of where we were before COVID. And now even, elementary schools, kids are learning online, which, my grandson is going through this right now. And I would have never imagined that, he would be going to school online. But that is the way things have, changed to. And so if you don't, earn a degree or, go out and get a license or a certificate, you have to be really intentional about still developing yourself, though. I mean, or you will be left behind. You'll be, pushed aside as obsolete, because that's the society we're in today. You have to be able to adapt, and change with the times and with the way things are today. I mean, again, for me and Dave to be here on this podcast, there's so many, you know, people on podcasts, people doing YouTube and all these, things on social media that 10 years ago wasn't even thought of. So now, again, everything's changing. If you don't change along with it, you will be pushed out the door. So that's what I would encourage people to do, not necessarily earn a degree, but find out what your path is, where you're going, and then make that determination on what you need to, get to the next level. And if you don't want to go to the next level, that's fine too. But just remember that if you choose not to advance or to further your growth and development, that may be your last step, or you may not get to the next level. So that's what I would encourage
And that's
people to do.
okay.
It's just,
Some people
and that
are
is
content with
acceptable.
that. It's just
Absolutely. It's
what that individual needs or wants, either at that time in their life, or just maybe they're content with where they're at. And that's not a bad thing. That's just is what it is.
right. But again, as long as you're okay with it, as long as you're, accepting of that, just going to it knowing that will be the case if you just choose not to advance or move forward. And that's all I would caution people, is to just think about, if this is it for you, if you're, in your twilight years are ready to retire or to walk away from, whatever you're doing, and that's, that's your choice. But if you plan to move on, move up, even transition to, like we talked about earlier, over, yeah, just make sure you're ready to move to those positions, whatever criteria, is except minimum criteria is required of that position or whatever it is. So yeah, the education conversation has definitely changed over the years, and it's becoming more and more of a topic. And like I say, being in corporate America, being in academia, there's been a huge shift. It absolutely has been. So I just, that's my biggest recommendation, is that people stay flexible and be tuned in to what's happening, and not, put blinders on or anything like that, because things are changing all the time.
Yeah. And don't discount certifications at all. I mean, there some careers, to Joe's point, do require a doctorate degree, a physician, medical fields, attorneys, um, veterinarians. There are career fields where having a doctorate degree is a requirement for that field, and that's fine. You, again, be focused and be deliberate about what you're doing. Some fields require or benefit from trade schools. I mean, some people are naturally gifted with art or welding or electrical and digging ditches or whatever, and that's great. Trade school is not a bad thing. It's a good thing because it helps broaden your knowledge. It's really about lifelong learning. And then another piece is just practicing your craft. I mean, there are
Right.
people that don't go to trade schools, don't go to college, that are looked at as experts in their field. I'll throw something out there: tile layers. There are some people that do that lay tile that perhaps don't have any formal education or trade school, but you walk into the room or the building and you see the tile work on the, I love tile work, and you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, this person is a genius, or painters or what have you. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities out there for moving ahead and doing well. And certifications, I know folks who have enough equivalent of college credits to have a master's degree, who have no college degree and are top wage earners in their company because of their expertise and certifications. One person I know who's very close to me said, Dave, if I want to make more money, all I need to do is go out and get another certification, which I can do in a few weeks, and I'll get paid more. And I'm like, it's just a different track. Really the crux of the situation with education is, lifelong learning and having at least an idea of what you want to do next. Not what do you want to do when you grow up, but what do you want to do next is really where education comes in. Does the job that you want require a degree? A lot of jobs require a 4-year degree. I mean, they won't even look at you. You could be, the best at what you do, but they won't look at you because you don't have a college degree. And conversely, to Joe's point, we've been in situations to where our peers don't have a college degree and they're making the same, if not more than us. And we have a doctorate degree in a college education. So it's like, it really just depends on your environment and who you're working for and what the expectations are.
I think that what you just said there is key. Expectations. What you mentioned it, if you know that the job that you're going after or you want for your next position or next level requires a 4-year degree, then that's what you'll have to do to get to that next level. So expectations, understanding what that position entails is probably one of the most important factors. Because if you go into a job where it says you need 20 years of experience, but then you go get a degree, then you defeated your purpose because the job didn't say you needed a 4-year degree. So I think understanding the expectations of that position is probably going to be one of the factors that'll help you decide which path you need to take. So yeah, I think that's huge.
All right. So I think we've about run out of time for this particular episode. So with that, Joe, any final closing thoughts real quick?
Again, I just want to start. I want to finish off like I started with the excitement that I have for us being on this platform, us co-hosting this podcast of Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. Because again, 17 years ago, somebody would have said that I would be assisting others in their journey. I would not have believed it. I would have probably laughed them out of the room. So I am excited about, being here, assisting you as you, go through your journeys, and me and Dave are continuing our journey. But I think it'll be great for us all to be together, assisting one another. So if you have questions, suggestions, anything, feel free to reach out to us. But again, I'm excited about being here, and I look forward to seeing you or hearing from you in upcoming episodes.
Thanks, Joe. And yeah, this is a journey. There's really no end. It's just, what you want to do and what the next thing is you're doing to get, and what you're doing to get there. So it is possible to go from ordinary to extraordinary. So with that, keep on being your not so ordinary you. Until next time, have a great day.
All right. See you all next time.